The security camera pinged at 1:43 a.m. Michael Torres, a 42-year-old firefighter who just finished a grueling double shift, grabbed his phone and watched three figures vault his backyard fence. Again, 6 weeks of this nightmare. 6 weeks of finding his pool chemicals thrown around, his furniture overturned, his privacy violated while he worked nights saving lives. The police had shrugged. His neighbor had laughed in his face when he'd politely asked her to control her 17-year-old son. But Michael wasn't a firefighter because he gave up easily. Tonight, everything was about to change. Before we dive into how Michael turned the tables on these entitled trespassers, if you love stories where patience runs out and justice gets served cold, hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's see exactly how this unfolded. This is a story in 3 parts. The violation that pushed a good person too far, the confrontation where power shifted completely, and the resolution where justice was finally served. The first part takes us through Michael's descent from reasonable neighbor to someone who'd been pushed beyond his breaking point. For 6 weeks, he endured sleepless mornings, destroyed property, and the kind of disrespect that eats away at your sense of safety in your own home. He tried everything the right way, calling authorities, speaking to parents, even offering olive branches. Every attempt was met with mockery or indifference. The toll it took wasn't just financial. It was the exhaustion of never feeling secure, of dreading each notification from his security system, of watching entitled teenagers treat his sanctuary like their personal playground while their mother dismissed his concerns with a smirk. The second part reveals the night Michael finally caught them, armed with more than just security footage. What these kids didn't know was that their victim had spent 2 weeks discovering exactly who they were, where they went to school, and what leverage would make them listen. The confrontation that followed shifted power so completely that 3 cocky teenagers found themselves facing consequences they never imagined possible. The third part delivers the justice Michael had earned through patience and planning. The resolution came with unexpected twists, lasting consequences, and a lesson about what happens when entitled people push the wrong person too far. The ending? More satisfying than anyone could have predicted. Here's exactly how it happened. Michael Torres had bought the house in Riverside, California 3 years ago specifically for the pool. After 16 years running into burning buildings, pulling people from wrecks and working 70-hour weeks, he'd wanted one thing: a backyard oasis where he could decompress after shifts that left him covered in soot and trauma. The saltwater pool, surrounded by privacy hedges and landscape lighting, had been his retirement plan in action. He was building something peaceful, something his own. The first incident happened on a Tuesday morning in late August. Michael arrived home at 7 a.m. after a particularly brutal night shift, 2 structure fires and a car accident that had taken 4 hours to clear. He walked into his backyard to find his pool gate hanging open, wet footprints across his deck, and 3 of his lounge chairs tossed into the deep end. His first thought was neighborhood kids making a stupid mistake. He fished out the furniture, checked the pump system, and went to bed exhausted. These things happen, he told himself. Once. 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time at 2:15 a.m. according to his newly installed security camera. Michael watched the grainy footage of 3 figures, teenagers by their size and movements, climbing his fence, cannonballing into his pool, and throwing his expensive floating LED lights against the concrete until they shattered. They stayed for 40 minutes, laughing loud enough to wake his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, 2 houses down. When Michael reviewed the footage that morning, his hands shook with something beyond exhaustion. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. The third incident broke him. September 15th. Michael had just worked a double shift covering for a sick colleague. 32 hours straight. He pulled into his driveway at 6:30 a.m. to find his pool deck covered in beer cans, his gate kicked off its hinges, and his brand-new pool heater control panel smashed to pieces. The replacement cost $1,200. But worse than the money was finding his late wife's memorial wind chime, the one he'd hung by the pool because she'd loved swimming there, bent and broken in the grass. He stood there in his soot-stained uniform and felt something shift inside him. Enough. Michael called the police that afternoon. Officer Davidson arrived, looked at the security footage, and shrugged. Looks like kids being kids. Can't really make out faces. File a report online, maybe get better cameras. Michael stared at him. $6,000 in damage. Weeks of harassment. That's it? The officer's expression said everything. This wasn't worth his time. So Michael did what he should have done first. He walked next door. His neighbor, Patricia Hendricks, answered in yoga pants and an expression of practiced annoyance. Michael explained the situation calmly, showed her the footage on his phone. She watched for 5 seconds before cutting him off. My son Dylan has friends over sometimes. Boys will be boys, Michael. Maybe if you weren't so uptight about a little pool use, this wouldn't be a problem. It's just water. Michael felt his jaw tighten. They caused over $6,000 in damage. They broke something that belonged to my late wife. Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Prove Dylan was involved. Oh, wait, you can't. Your cameras are terrible. Maybe invest in better security instead of harassing teenagers. She closed the door in his face. That night, Michael didn't sleep. Instead, he sat at his kitchen table and made a decision. If the system wouldn't help him, and if his neighbor thought she could laugh off property destruction because her cameras weren't perfect, then he'd show them both what a firefighter with time, motivation, and technical skills could accomplish. He spent the next 2 weeks becoming an expert on motion-activated sprinkler systems, high-definition night vision cameras, and most importantly, on Dylan Hendricks and his 2 best friends. And on October 1st, everything was finally ready. The alert came at 1:43 a.m. on Saturday, October 1st. Michael was awake, dressed in dark clothing, sitting in his kitchen with his new tablet displaying feeds from 4 different camera angles. He watched 3 figures approach his fence. Dylan Hendricks, Jake Morrison, and Tyler Chen, all 17, all students at Riverside High School. Michael knew their full names now. He knew their class schedules, their parents' workplaces, even their social media accounts where they'd been stupid enough to post photos of late-night pool parties that clearly showed his backyard. They climbed over the fence with practiced ease, laughing and shoving each other. Dylan went first, dropping into Michael's yard like he owned it. Told you he's always at work Saturday nights? Dylan's voice carried clearly on the new audio system. Old man probably doesn't even check the cameras anymore. Michael smiled in the darkness. Old man. He was 42. Michael waited until all 3 were in the pool, splashing and being deliberately loud. Then he stepped out his back door and flipped a switch. Every landscape light in the yard blazed to life simultaneously, turning night into day. The motion-activated sprinklers erupted in a precisely calculated pattern. Not the gentle lawn sprinklers, but the high-pressure systems he'd installed at strategic points. Ice-cold water shot at them from 6 directions at once. The teenagers screamed, scrambling for the pool edge. But Michael had positioned the sprinklers to create a gauntlet. Every path to the fence got them soaked. Get out of my pool, Michael said quietly, his voice cutting through their panic. The sprinklers shut off. 3 drenched, shivering teenagers stared at him. Dylan recovered first, putting on bravado. We were just... Michael cut him off. Dylan James Hendricks, 342 Maple Street. Jake Morrison, 1547 Oak Avenue. Tyler Chen, 890 Pine Ridge Road. The silence that followed was beautiful. Michael watched the color drain from their faces as they realized he knew exactly who they were. He took 3 steps closer, his firefighter's build suddenly very apparent in the harsh light. Dylan, your mother is Patricia Hendricks, real estate agent at Coldwell Banker. Your father is James Hendricks, regional manager at Enterprise. You're a senior at Riverside High, you play lacrosse, and you drive a 2018 Jeep Wrangler. Your GPA is 2.4, which means you're barely holding onto your spot on the team. Dylan's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Michael turned to the others. Jake, your parents are Linda and Robert Morrison. Your dad's an attorney. Imagine how he'll feel when I show him the footage of you trespassing, causing property damage, and consuming what appears to be beverages on my property while underage. You're applying to UCLA, aren't you? Trespassing charges look great on college applications. Jake looked like he might throw up. Tyler, your mom's a nurse at Riverside Community Hospital. We actually work near each other. Small world. She talks about you all the time. Honors student, scholarship potential, never been in trouble. Want to guess how she'll react when I show her 6 weeks of footage? Tyler started crying. Michael pulled out his phone. Here's how this works. Option 1, I call your parents right now. I file police reports for criminal trespassing, property damage, and provide 6 weeks of crystal clear footage from my new camera system. I pursue charges. You each get a record. Dylan loses lacrosse. Jake loses UCLA. Tyler loses his scholarship opportunities. Your parents get sued for the $8,000 in damages you've caused. I post this footage on the neighborhood Facebook page and tag all your friends. He let that sink in. Option 2. You have 48 hours to repair everything you've broken. New gate, new heater panel, new lounge chairs, new LED lights, and a new wind chime identical to the one you destroyed. Total cost, $3,000 split 3 ways. You personally install everything under my supervision this weekend. You do the work, not your parents. And this never happens again. Dylan found his voice. You can't prove... Michael held up his tablet. The footage was perfect. Faces, voices, everything. New cameras cost money, but they were worth every penny. Want to bet your future on my proof not being good enough? 40 minutes later, Michael watched 3 soaking wet, terrified teenagers climb back over his fence. Dylan turned at the top. We'll be here Saturday at 8 a.m. His voice shook. Michael nodded once. I know you will. Because if you're not, every parent, every school administrator, and the police department gets a very detailed email at 8:01. Michael walked back inside and smiled for the first time in 6 weeks. Saturday morning, 7:45 a.m. Michael stood on his back deck with fresh coffee, watching 3 figures trudge up his driveway carrying Home Depot bags. They looked exhausted. Apparently, the reality of consequence had kept them up. Good. Dylan, Jake, and Tyler avoided eye contact as Michael opened the gate and gestured to the pile of broken equipment he'd laid out. Everything you destroyed. Start with the gate hinges. For the next 6 hours, Michael watched 3 entitled teenagers learn what manual labor actually meant. Dylan, who'd probably never held a screwdriver, struggled with the gate hardware. Jake, the attorney's son, got a blister within the first hour. Tyler, the honors student, was the only one who worked with focus, clearly desperate to make this right. Michael inspected everything with the same attention to detail he used checking fire equipment. When Dylan installed the heater panel backwards, Michael made him remove it and start over. Not good enough. Do it right. Around noon, a car pulled up. Patricia Hendricks stormed into the backyard, her face red with fury. What do you think you're doing with my son? Michael turned slowly, his expression calm. Your son is repairing the $8,000 in damage he caused trespassing on my property for 6 weeks. Would you like to see the footage? He pulled out his tablet. Patricia's confidence wavered as she watched crystal-clear video of Dylan leading the destruction, laughing while breaking Michael's property, bragging about the stupid old firefighter who doesn't do anything. Patricia's face went pale. Dylan said, Michael cut her off. Dylan lied to you? For 6 weeks, your son used my pool like his personal playground, destroyed my property, and you told me to my face it wasn't your problem. You said to prove it. Here's your proof. Now you have a choice. Let him finish making this right, or I file charges and civil suits on Monday morning. Your call. Patricia looked at her son, who couldn't meet her eyes. The fight went out of her. Dylan, is this true? Dylan nodded miserably. Patricia's voice went cold in a way that made even Michael uncomfortable. You'll finish this work. Then you're grounded until Christmas. Your car keys go in my safe, and you're paying me back every penny of this. She turned to Michael. I'm sorry. I should have listened. She left without another word. The teenagers worked until 6 p.m. The gate hung perfectly. The heater panel gleamed. New furniture sat poolside. The replacement wind chime, Tyler had somehow found the exact model online, hung where the original had been. Michael inspected everything twice, then nodded. It's acceptable. He called them over. 3 exhausted, sunburned teenagers stood before him like soldiers awaiting judgment. Michael took his time. For 6 weeks, you made my home feel unsafe. I worked nights saving lives, and I came home to find my sanctuary destroyed. You laughed when you did it. You felt entitled to take what wasn't yours. His voice stayed level, but they all flinched. Your parents will handle your punishments. But understand this. Actions have consequences. You just got lucky that I'm someone who believes in second chances. The cameras stay. The sprinklers stay. If I see any of you near my property again without invitation, there is no option 2. Am I clear? 3 voices answered in unison. Yes, sir. 2 months later, December evening. Michael sat by his pool, the new wind chime singing softly in the breeze. The water was perfectly clear, the deck undisturbed. He'd seen Dylan exactly once, doing community service at the fire station as part of his punishment. The kid had worked hard, kept his head down, and actually apologized without his mother forcing him. Tyler had stopped by once to apologize properly and thank Michael for not destroying his future. Jake still avoided eye contact in public. Mrs. Patterson walked by with her dog and waved. Haven't heard any commotion in weeks. Peace and quiet, finally. Michael raised his coffee mug to her. Peace and quiet. His backyard was his sanctuary again. Michael had learned something in 16 years of firefighting. Sometimes the biggest fires aren't the ones you fight with water, but the ones you prevent by refusing to be a victim. And as he sat there in the December twilight, his pool reflecting the stars, his late wife's wind chime singing in the breeze, he smiled, because justice, whether served with a fire hose or ice-cold sprinklers, was equally satisfying. Across the country in Portland, Oregon, retired civil engineer Margaret Liu was reviewing construction permits when her HOA president demanded